My name is Alastair Campbell, and it says on my website I'm a writer, communicator and strategist. Well, I saw it very much as a double act with Jeff McDonald, both of us talking about our experience of mental health problems and how we both use those to be the people that we've become. And so I was making the point that I don't see any success that I've had as being despite having had mental health problems. I see it in part because I think it's given me more resilience and allowed me to work out who I am and what I want to do with my life. So, and then talking more generally about the need to break down the stigma and taboo, recognising that there is huge stigma about mental illness everywhere in the world, but perhaps even more so here than in parts of Europe. And it was really good, really good, and the feedback afterwards was fantastic from people saying that they just, normally they don't really talk about this kind of thing, and so that's it's always good to hear. But then beyond the talking, there's got to be the action that then genuinely breaks down the stigma. Success for me is when we all feel we can be as open about our mental health as we are about our physical health. That is what success means, and it means that governments around the world don't just talk the talk as our government does in the UK about wanting to do more for mental health services, but does it. Because I think long term, and this was a conference for employers and human resources leaders, long term I think our economies all benefit if we invest properly in looking after people's mental well-being. So I don't see this as a kind of poor us, look after us kind of thing. It's actually investment now in people's mental health and well-being saves an awful lot of money and adds to productivity in the future. I don't think you can see leadership just in its own context. I think you have to relate it to the ability to strategize and the ability to build and lead a team. So I always think that strategy, you can't look at it in a vacuum, and nor can you look at leadership or teamship in a vacuum. They all three have to go together. So I think the effective leaders are the ones who can strategize, can lead and build a team, and then are very, very clear about what it is that they're trying to do, and use those two other parts of the triangle to do them. And it takes all sorts. I mean, there's no two people the same, there's no two styles of leadership the same. But I think having that sense of this is where we're trying to get to, you're the people I need to try and help me get there, and here's the core strategy about how we're going to try to do that. In a world where, this is the other big theme of the conference really, in a world where defined absolutely by the acceleration of the pace of change. So I think the acronyms I mentioned were SLT, which I've already mentioned, Strategy, Leadership, Teamship. You can call it TLS, you can call it any order you want, but they've all got to kind of go together. And OST, that was about set the objective, because the objective ought to help you define the strategy, and only do the tactics once you've got those two worked out. And too many people go down to that bit because it's easier. And then GGOOB is get good out of bad. So whether it's Jeff and I talking about getting good out of bad, having both had very bad mental health problems, turning them into something more positive, whether it's the campaigning work we do now or the work that we do now. I talked about Mandela. How do you take something as awful as 27 years in jail and turn it into something positive? Well, he's one of my favourite ever examples of get good out of bad. He came out with a smile on his face and he took it as the opportunity to change the course of history. So yeah, and what other ones do I have? TLTP, best team leaders are the best team players. That's another one I have. YSTA, you set the agenda. I can keep going forever. I've spoken at loads of conferences in different parts of the world, and I thought the production values very, very high. I mean, they do love their big kind of, filmic presentation. I think they could cut down on the awards a bit. I'm not sure you deserve an award just for doing a speech. I'm very happy to have it, but I'm not sure I did that much to deserve it. But I think in terms of the themes, it was excellent. Very good mix of speakers. And I do think it was interesting afterwards, after my and Jeff's presentations, how many people, particularly women, were coming up and saying that was really unexpected. we didn't realise that you were actually going to talk about mental illness, not just well-being and healthy workforce and the way that people normally talk about this stuff, but actually mental illness. So I think that's quite a, for this region, I think that was quite a courageous thing to do. And what was really interesting was I felt in the hall, and I know Jeff said the same when I spoke to him afterwards, they were listening, they were really, really engaged. So yeah, I think the whole thing's been very well organised, and hopefully we'll have some decent lasting impact, particularly for me in this area. When I specifically said employ people who admit to having mental health issues because they're honest and they're likely to be more resilient. And I also think that a lot of them, they'll end up being more creative as well. And what do we need? We all go on the whole time about wanting to be normal. Well, I think that's fine, but it's very limiting. So I look for the abnormal, look for the special, look for the different.